We stopped with you speaking about Kelly. Now, I'm sure you knew John Kelly as well.
Very well, very well.
Would you say something about this amazing story of John Kelly?
I will, because we spent many evenings with him. And, he was a fireman, volunteer fireman in Manhattan. And I think Maggie did write something of his story, but John shared so much with us that I recorded it on a tape and no longer can find that tape. We moved so many places, but I'll give you some idea. John speaks to us of worlds he has visited and gives us glimpses of the gods who are acting upon us to further the evolution, and tells us of the many humans who have been used as vehicles by the Divine Mother to transmit essential information for the protection of humanity. And you know something of the story?
Yes, Great Sir and the Heavenly Lady.
Yes.
These were the
and he's only 17 years old. And he could tell you that story word for word. Every single time it would be the same. It was engraved in his consciousness. Yeah. But the most extraordinary thing for me was that, he's on the bottom of a hill and the Nazis are raining down fire upon him, and he's losing most of his company. He's got very little left, and he's only 17. I think he was a sergeant. And he looks up in the sky, and there's Great Sir. Yeah. He thinks it's God, obviously, 17-year-old Roman Catholic boy.
Right.
So he thinks it's God, and God says, I'll help you out of this. And then he says, but if my way you should choose, then your religion you must lose. And John said to me, it was like a ping pong match. He said, what do I say next? Anyway, Sri Aurobindo shows him how to get out of it. And the remainder of his group, I guess it was
his company.
A small company, yeah. Maybe even a patrol, but a small company, yeah. And so they're going, and Sri Aurobindo tells them every move to make. Yeah. Turn right here, turn left here. And he says, I don't know why I did it, but he said, I just got tired of him telling me. And he said, so once when he said turn right, I turned left, and a bullet grazes my cheek. I said, okay, I got it. He had inexhaustible energy. He was well over 6'2" and 200 pounds. And he would meet with Ananta at the Hotel Europe and finish a bottle of whiskey together.
Yeah.
We cannot judge her in any way. There's that beautiful quatrain, the rapid footsteps of her fantasy, amid whose falls wonders like flowers rise, are surer than reason, defter than device, and swifter than imagination's wings.
Yeah.
Savitri. That was John. Now, you must have known Mona Pinto. I had a very close relationship with her because I lived for some years in Golconda. We became very close, and this is so beautiful. One day, Dakshina from Sri Aurobindo Sadhana Pitam wants to meet Mona. So I take her up to meet her. Mona's upstairs, and she's at her desk. Mona says to her, what is your name? And Dakshina says, Dakshina. She says, no, what is your Christian name? Dakshina says, Dakshina. They went back and forth for about 5 minutes, and neither one would give in. And finally, I think they called it a truce. So, Dakshin is about to leave, and I'm accompanying her. Mona says, no, stay back. I want to talk with you. So I stay back. And Mona's a very strong person. Mother called her my collaborator, you remember. Oh, she said, talk to me a bit about Savitri. I'm reading Savitri with someone else, and for the first time, this is 92 years old. She's reading Savitri, really into Savitri now. So we talked for a long time. Then, she grabs my head in both her hands and kisses me on the lips for about a minute. First time I've ever been kissed on the lips by a 92-year-old. And it was a beautiful kiss, I must say. It was a beautiful kiss. But I didn't understand it. So I go back to the US, and I return to the ashram in October. And suddenly some boys can come to me and say, would you help us carry Mona's body down to the vehicle to go to the burial place next to Udar? And then I knew she was saying goodbye with that kiss. Wow.
Yeah.
That was her farewell to me. This is about Aurobindo Basu. Because I guess he was with me from the earliest days. He gave talks in Sedona, where they once had this beautiful center, and now they made it a state park. Actually, they didn't destroy it with developments. They made a beautiful state park, and I knew Lois very well, and Nick Duncan, who founded it. And so he would come there and speak, and that's where I first met him. And as in your life and my life, I'm sure there are some people who have helped you in your sadhana that you can never forget. And he is the one for me, he and Nolini.
Yeah.
Because of all the experiences within that he gave me, and I mentioned some of those last time. So he had long correspondence with a Catholic priest. And I would have to write to the Catholic priest and send his letter, and then the priest would reply about Théod de Chardin. See, and they would go back and forth about that. Just like Amal had this long correspondence with Kathleen Rain, the poet. Yes. Because you probably read her poetry, beautiful poetry. Yeah. So anyway, I invited this father, his name is Donald Gergen, to our Sri Aurobindo Integral Yoga retreat in South Carolina one year. And the first talk he gives is about Théod, and it was over everybody's head.
Yeah.
And his second talk is about his experiences with Sri Aurobindo. He's staying at Park Guest House. He's sitting in his chair. 3 or 4 feet from him, Sri Aurobindo materializes and speaks to him. And it changed him completely. Mm-hmm. He's at the airport in Chennai, and again, Sri Aurobindo standing before him. So he's telling all of these stories, and at the very end, of course, people are just mesmerized in the whole group. At the very end, this Catholic priest goes before the 2 huge photos of Sri Aurobindo mothers and prostrates himself. And And I have photos of all the people that wanted to be with him and all. These are incredible experiences. So the next thing, and I guess, well, there are two more things. First of all, the things that he would say to me, did I tell you about not failing the mother, my guilt feeling?
Yes.
Then he says to me, do not work too hard. This is very important. I was Louis Allen.
Yeah.
Follow your breathing 5 minutes per day. Do not tell anyone about health issues. It is only a possibility in 6 months to 1 year. And he says, do not think about it or think about the past. Do things in a small way, no splash. This is always what Mother and Sri Aurobindo wanted. Then he says, the supramental is at work, breaking up the past. There will be much more destruction. People will suffer. But what can you do? The supermind will not accept the mental role, the mental way of things. So then, just before he is preparing to leave, he would invite me to come to the house. One night he said, we have to take photos. Only there's one condition. You have to be in Indian dress and I have to be in Western dress. So I have those photos. So then, this one night I'm sitting with him, and for 2 hours, he's 92 now, he's talking about Sri Aurobindo. Wave after wave of peace is coming, wave after wave. Finally, there's a moment when I sense Sri Aurobindo's in the room. I don't see him though. He says, what do you feel? I said, he said, yes, Sri Aurobindo is here. And then he makes a joke. He says, he always has to come when we talk about his yoga. So then my friend Gilles, who lives in the ashram, you must know Gilles, he wants to go and see him one time. He's never met him. So I asked Aurobindo, I said, can he come? Sure, he can come. And he sits to his right, I'm in front of him, and he begins talking about Sri Aurobindo and all these, so much. Again, same thing happens. But this time, the peace comes down, like Sri Aurobindo says, something like a block of ice. It's so solid. And Gilles is like that with his mouth open, and Aurobindo says to him, what do you feel? He says, he's speechless. And Renam says, Sri Aurobindo's here. That was the two experiences. So then I had that experience, and Gilles had it also, which was very beautiful. So then when Mary Helen left, he didn't know about it, and he read about it in the Orville Today, which was published immediately. He writes, I will not try to comfort you, because first, I do not have the words with which to do so. Secondly, I am sure that this is a most grievous event, but you are mature enough to know that the mother will most certainly look after the welfare of the departed soul. I have myself prayed for her safe journey through the unseen worlds to the secure place of her psychic rest. While she was with us physically, I appreciated her and still remember her gentle personality and her trust in the mother. She will be and is a fond memory. I'm glad that I knew her and shall remember her. So the next one is interesting here. I gotta find it. Yeah. These are really extraordinary experiences for a young man, because I made a tour of botanical gardens to research plants for the Matrimondia. And I get to Washington, D.C., and I meet Nelson Rockefeller, World Wildlife Fund. I talked to him about Oroville. We had a wonderful conversation, but he says to me that, we're really working on protecting the tiger now in India, so all our efforts are in that way. But he appreciated the idea of Oroville very much. And so I'm in Washington at Rose Kupperman's house, and she was a wonderful devotee. And it's about 1:40 in the afternoon on a Sunday, and I have an appointment at a bookshop to speak of whether they would like to have Sri Aurobindo's books. And I have an incredible experience at the National Air and Space exhibit at the Smithsonian. And then there's a Kemp Mill record shop just very close, and I wanted to see if they had a recording of Rachmaninoff's Vespers, because that's been always very special to me. And I go in, and I'm talking with this young man, and he remarks that he was not familiar with the latest works. And I tell him that I was not familiar with the latest recordings because I've been in India. And he says, where? And I said, Oroville. He was astonished. He said he had been studying Sri Aurobindo for the past year and a half. And these experiences now come so quickly because we're discussing Penderecki Dies Irae, and he mentions that he was also studying this work as he is a composer and a musician. Then he spoke of a friend of his who was a fantastic pianist. He said, you have to meet this man. And he says his name is Roman Chak. And I said, that's my mother's maiden name. Then he said that his friend's name was Serge, and he was the finest pianist in Washington. I have a CD. Turns out to be my nephew. Oh my gosh. Then Serge and his sister and Eric, we meet night after night to talk of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Now, this is my the copy of my card from Mother.
Yeah, 72.
Yeah. Okay, this is in the service tree. When Parichand brought me the blessing packet to care for the tree for the rest of my life. And this was in 1970 or 71. I was still climbing with a safety harness after going very high into the top of the tree. But this day, there were many dead branches that needed to be pruned. You may know that I have made 2,000 incense holders from the dead branches, gave them to Alberta, and he distributed them in all the bags for prosperity. And I've also sent many, many of them overseas to the different centers of Sri Aurobindo. And still people are asking me. I think it's Miradi now with the Gangaram, who needs one. So I keep doing that. Then, so this time I don't have the belt on. And I'm climbing through the trees section by, because my father taught me climbing. I used to go up 100 feet into a tree with no fear at all, because, in those days when you're young, you no fear of anything. And it stayed with me. So I come to the eastern side. northeast. And there's Mother in her room.
Yeah.
Wow. And maybe I shouldn't have glanced at her golden form in that space where there were no walls, but as I said to others, can the bumblebee not go to a flower? And the experience of seeing her there alone with Kumud, I started shaking, and I would have fallen. She held me. She just held me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to get down. I can remember that moment because it was a very special darshan.
Yeah.
Very special. Okay. Last one, did I talk about the arts building?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So that'll conclude this group. When that voice had spoken to me telling me to go to help Jyoti Priya, this happens. So we're working with Jyoti Priya, both of us. She has special children that she teaches, and we're both working there. And there's this building in the back, dilapidated but long building, huge, maybe about 6 times this room, that big. Now, I had absolutely no aptitude for anything, as far as construction or anything like that. I mean, my father would cringe if I lifted up a hammer. And he was so talented, and my other brother, so talented, I had nothing. And I looked at that building and I said, this could be an arts building. And do you know that Mother gave me everything I needed? I learned carpentry, plumbing, electrical. I built a stage. I did shoji screens on the windows. I did Japanese, like tatami mats on the floor. And Dane Rudya would come and play the piano. So this was the perfect spot for the first exhibition of Champaklal's paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And as you can see some of them here, Mother actually wrote the significance of the painting. It's so beautiful. Huh? And so Sam Spanier and Eric Hughes had a framer in Manhattan because Sam's paintings. And we went there, and I have the photos of that, and they framed 12 of Champaklal's paintings. And we gave the first exhibit. Unfortunately, he wanted too much money, and he wanted $5,000 for each one, and people wouldn't pay that much. But it was the first exhibition, and I remember how many people came and took part in the celebration of his paintings and of the arts building. Later on, the area became very bad, and they had to leave and move to a more southern part of Los Angeles. But those were quite some days.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to include a picture of Sam and Eric as well in the, you know.
Oh, yeah, I've got lots of those.
Yeah,
good.
Because they did a lot of work, huh?
Ah, yes. And we were all very close.
Yeah.
Because living in New York, I used to go there regularly. And in fact, I have that large a stack of Eric's correspondence. Yeah. He helped so much. Anything we needed for the Macha Mandir, they would send tools, equipment, didn't matter what it was.